So we're on live, but I'm gonna wait a little bit till just like one more minute to like do the sound. So if you look in this camera here, that's what's playing live.
Okay. Looking good.
And do you have a block?
Oh yeah.
If you don't have a block, you can use a rolled up bath towel.
Okay. Because I have a block, but it's in the studio, and I don't want to bug him, so I'll just get a towel.
Oh, okay. Yes, you can use a bath towel. They work well. You're gonna sit right there, aren't you? Good morning, everybody. Who's here? Oh, husband Paul. Husband Paul, can you hear me okay? Good morning, everybody. Let me know if you can hear stuff okay. We're going to get started in about, I'm just going to give it 2 minutes, 9:02, just for our new setup. Oh, great. Welcome, everybody. So nice to be here. We're here at my friend's. Robin's just heading over with some headphones. We're here at our friend's house, Robin and Lawrence. They have a really lovely spot with some reliable Wi-Fi, which has become the most important thing to all yoga teachers right now. And we're just going to broadcast from here live today for this YIN class. So you see I have a block here. I also have my strap. I'm not too sure we're going to get into the strap today, but you never know. If you know about things where you need support, feel free to grab a strap. If you don't have a yoga block, feel free to grab a towel. A towel really serves, Robin's got one off camera here, a towel really serves as a great offering to roll up. I've said that many times before, so you can feel free to do that. And if you've got what you need, I've got a whole setup here from dog in front. She may make her way onto camera, but I've got the coffee, I've got the water. Coffee, but you know, it's yin and it's Sunday morning, so let's just do what feels good for us. If you've got what you need, you can head on to your back body and just start to feel the mat support you. Feel the ground hold you up. And then turn yourself over to that idea. Let yourself go. And as you are on your back body, guys, just start to actively soften the jaw. Close the eyes. And be in charge in a way of being receptive to ease in your body and being receptive to the softness of your breath. I'm not sure where you are, but you may very well get a sense of the great outdoors that I'm in and the peace of life surrounding us, the birds and the kind of light air moving through. And even the softness of the water in the pool. And these are all real simple delights, whether you have a pool or not. We do have the air around us. We all can take in the pleasure of the birds moving around. And whether we're inside or outside, we can all be aware of the life around us. And so just starting to soften because of that. Because at the very least, which is the very grandest of points, we have that to begin our practice today. And one of the things about yin is understanding that we also have time. So together, let's just take a big inhale. You could probably feel for your belly rising, your heart following suit. You get really filled up inside. And then you might find an audible exhale or sigh or hum. And with the beauty of that audible expression, there's a sense of just how heavy you can meet the mat. And then step the soles of the feet onto the mat. And you'll ground your feet here as we start to really delve into the beginning of this practice today. And that is not nothing, just feeling for the feet meeting the ground. And that feeling, what does it feel like today? And then commit to keeping your arms out of this so your hands can stay down. And as you bring the knees up towards your chest, you take the feet off the floor. And then suspending the feet right into the air, I want you to imagine your knees are like their own steering wheels. And then just kind of move your knees in no particular order. Sometimes I imagine drawing circles or number 8s. And as you do this really slow movement and you breathe in and out through the nose, you're starting to steer a little more awakenedness into your hips and lower back. And given that we're not using our hands to manufacture this, to help the knees move and thus to wake up the hips and lower back, given that we're not doing that, we get into maybe a more honest mobility of our body here today. So you don't have to manufacture anything kind of big in the way of a gesture. Just feeling for where the knees just want to go and how that kind of tilts the hips up and down off the ground. Maybe a little rock side to side with that. And you're going to take 2 more breaths in and out through the nose as you feel for this very slow, deliberate movement. And then just place your hands on your knees. Settle your knees wherever center feels for you. Take a deep breath in, ground your lower back. And as you out the nose exhale, pull the knees in towards the chest a bit and ground your shoulders down. And then put the soles of the feet onto the mat. And reach for your block. So if you have to get up a bit, no problem. With the soles of the feet on the mat and you take your prop, whether it's your block or your towel, you're going to press into the feet, lift your bum up, and you're going to slip your prop underneath your sacrum, just above your bum cheeks, so that you can rest that block underneath your sacrum, supporting your sacrum, the base of your spine. Feeling the kind of lift of your pelvic floor. Let your head be grounded and your shoulders be grounded. And just feel for that the same way you felt for your mat supporting you. You feel for your lower back being supported and grounded, and you exhale into that support. And when you meet a yin pose in a new offering, at least allow 3 breaths just to feel how it needs to meet your body today. You might, after those 3 breaths, make any kind of adjustments so that you can be still to the pose. You might decide you need a little more sensation, a little more kind of curiosity about the pose. If you want to go deeper from here already, you can lengthen the legs long and rest the heels on the mat. This will push a little more actively your pelvic floor higher and widen the space between your hips. It's important that you decide at some point to be still to this, to be quiet to the pose. And you might be able to hear the environment I'm in, and the birds, a little rustle of the leaves here and there. You might be able to get a sense of how I'm breathing in and out. You can accompany me, or you can find your own rhythm. And just letting go. Through each exhale, you soften a little more deeply into the state of this Shavasana-like body, if you've got long legs. But this kind of heaviness of back body to the mat, lower back to your prop, soles of the feet on the mat or heels on the mat. And let the gesture of your face soften right through to the forehead. And the stiller we become in our practice and in our body, the more we're going to start to notice what's in and around those pockets of still. Whether it be this kind of tendency to want to meet movement, or whether it be this kind of movement within the head space and the heart space. Let that be a kind of benefit, right? To meeting yourself more mindfully, to noticing what your triggers are, where you're responding, where you're reacting. We're more than halfway there with this first pose. It may be the case that there's a deeper offering to be had. You could change the height on your block to go a little higher. You could bunch up your towel a little differently to go a little higher. Or you could stay put. Just notice whether you're looking to move for the sake of moving, or whether there's an honest gesture of going a little deeper with the pose. And then allow yourself to meet one breath in and maybe count that in for one. And meet your exhale and maybe count that out for two. And commit to just following the breath, so that there's a real mindfulness around following that breath in and out of your body, while also keeping the mind a little more centered, a little more grounded in the simplicity of inhale and exhale. And travel through about 5 more breaths. 5 complete breath cycles. Keeping the fingertips soft and the toe tips soft and the jaw soft. Allowing yourself the space to follow only your breath in and out. Noticing what triggers, what challenges that space of softening in. Whether it's the buzz of the household or the buzz of the bugs around. Can everything be a little less reactionary? I'm going to take your time out of that 5th and final breath cycle to bend your legs if they're long and put the soles of the feet on the mat. If you have stacked the block or prop really high, maybe you go down incrementally. You'll push through the feet to sneak the bum up, to take your prop down to one setting and ground. Have a breath there, in and out. And then push through the feet again to sneak your bum up. And take your prop out completely. Keep it nearby. Ground in the bend of your legs, soles of the feet to the mat. Stay put. And then just like we started the practice, lift the soles of the feet off the mat. Keep the arms out of it. Feel just this gesture of bringing the knees closer to the chest and how that feels in your lower back. And as you keep your hands out of it, no hands to knees here, just feel the knees lightly move again in any which way. And that gesture of movement kind of massaging out the lower back and the hips. Breathe in and out through the nose. And then put the soles of the feet onto the mat here, right? Put your feet wider, like they're mat width distance, and then knock the knees inward towards one another to rest up against one another and stay put there with your lower back resting to the floor. And the grounding of your whole back spine on the floor. And a couple of exhales here, generated by full inhales. You might spread your toes here as the knees knock in and hang out up against one another. Deep breath in and out through the nose. And then bring the knees into the chest again. Hug around the shins with your arms or interlocked fingers and lift your head. And then try and bring the forehead closer to the knees. Full breath in and out. Little active belly here as you hug. And then as you round out of this, soles of the feet down. And you're going to kind of come up to a sit. And in that sit, we're going to work up the length of the spine, guys. And so in that sit, what you'll do is you'll take your prop, and it'll be at the lowest setting. So if my hand's the floor or your mat, it's like that. Lowest setting on the prop block. And it'll go across the midsection of your spine. And as you do that, you're going to look to lie down. Make sure your bum can touch down on the floor. And then as you lie down, your head should be able to touch down on the floor. And then from here, I invite you to bring the soles of the feet together, knees wide. So an added opening through the hips. And you can either tee out the arms so that there's a real offering of arms lying down and grounding. Or if it's better for you overhead with a bend in the arms, then that's possible too. And then the practice of still here, the practice of just meeting this opening. It's really engaging your rib cage into a kind of big opening here. If you're using a block as a prop, it's always going to feel like a block underneath your back body. Some people layer that with a towel. Some of us are using our towel across the back body, so it might be a little softer in its gesture. But just allowing your ribs to open up to this in the way that they're being invited to do. Some people like to place their hands on their ribs and just feel for that breath in and out, that subtle lift up and down. I'm just going to encourage you to meet the softness of your hands rather than any kind of gripping, the softness of your arms. And in this shape here, it may feel really delicious to just explore the big, broad expression of breath so that you're really going for an inhale and you're feeling the wide. And then you're going for that exhale and you're feeling the drop down and the release. What might be possible as you release through one exhale and the next exhale and the next exhale is to feel the upper back body and the shoulders, the upper shoulder blade area there. Just kind of almost cave down into the ground, one breath at a time. It's almost like a caving in as the shoulder blades meet a little closer to the mat each time. May be the case that for some of us they're touching. But the cave of the upper back body might feel like it's being more pronounced through one exhale at a time. more than halfway through. We're here for a little less time than that first opening. A lot of people meet this pose and they experience a deep, deep level of intensity or confrontation. There's something about the holding of the rib cage emotionally. And so what I've found helps me in this shape is to really pay attention to how the breath can help you move through any of those walls that you might be meeting or bumping up against. And just trusting that even here in this real kind of middle place of your torso, this kind of rib cage spot of our body, even here, there is the ability to open up. Even if it felt like at the onset of things, not possible. I want you to take about 5 more breaths. Feeling the grand of the inhale kind of move into your center line to almost push the ribs towards the sides of your mat. And feeling for the real heavy space of your back body meeting the prop and the mat in that exhale. And when you've got to that 5th breath cycle, just completing it, letting it go. And then as much as you were here in this shape, try and be here for the transition out. So there's a real appreciation of moving slow. You'd bring the hands to the outer thighs. You'd close the knees like a book. You'd bring the soles of the feet to the mat. You'd feel the grounding of those feet down. And as you take one of your hands underneath your head, you help your head lift. And as it lifts a little higher than your chest, you can't help but turn on your belly. And then you release your hand, both hands and forearms to the mat, belly activated to sit up. And as you get into that sit up, your legs can go long. You can remove the prop from where it was. Keep it nearby. And you're going to lie back down to create that neutral space in your spine. So that neutral space won't be exactly flat per se, but it'll be an offering of getting back onto the back body, for the back body to find a way, into just resting here, and really into a bit of feedback from the pose that we were just in. And you'll feel a little bit of that leftover imprint in your back body, which will eventually settle a little more and a little more and a little more. You'll feel that. And you'll also feel, especially if that was super challenging for you, you may even notice what feels like the safety or the safeness of the rib cage being restored into that hugging in for you. But it also, as it restores itself there, it restores itself there having been almost washed out, kind of flushed out. A bunch of energy moved through, a bunch of blood flow released, a bunch of patterns kind of being tossed around, and then finding new pathways into that space of you. And that's the good stuff for bodies to move through. That's the good stuff we want to visit in our bodies. A few breaths here. Take a big exhale. And the cool thing about exhales when you just do them on their own is you don't need to pay attention so much to the inhale. It's a true release. You're going to come up to a sit again, however you need to get up to a sit. And as you come up to a sit, you're going to take your prop again. And I'm going to invite you to do it at the lowest height again. If you have two props, there may be an opportunity to put that first prop that I'm going to ask you to use to a second highest height kind of vibe. But if you're working with one prop like me today, what it's going to do is go long, kind of center as much as possible. And when you lie back down, again, your bum is flat to the floor. But where we're working up the length of the spine is to open up the chest and the heart. And you're going to try and get your head down on the ground. So if you can't do that, you might need to slide your prop up a bit just to catch the base of the head. That can happen while still opening your back body or upper back body. But if you don't need to do that, keep it a little lower. Make sure that the chest is kind of butterfly opening here. It just can't help but meet the opening here. And in that opening, you'll really feel the center of your chest. Maybe feel challenged a bit, right? Much like our hips and our ribs. This is our heart center, holding emotion here, right? Then we're going to go long with the legs and wide with the legs and let the inner feet more face the sky so that there's an external opening and rotation of the hips out. And then again, you could tee your arms here, or you could tee them up overhead a little bit just to really also encourage an opening through the armpits and the upper chest. I want you to feel for the version in your arms that gives you less pause in your breath. So you might need to play around with that. You don't want anything in your way of being open. So if you need to fuss at the onset of any yin pose as you get in, do the fussing a little bit at the top. Make sure that you can feel for the sensation of the stretch. Here it's in through the front of the chest, upper back. Make sure that that sensation is not painful, but it is indeed a stretch. For those that are not sure how to distinguish that, pain for me is a little more centered or piercing, whereas sensation and stretch is a little more broad. And there's also that ability to be able to get a breath in and get a breath out. And so using that information of breath as a bit of insight into what's possible in your shape. And this practice today, if it hasn't been completely obvious as of yet, we're really trying to get into the health and well-being of our spine and how that back body affects our front body and how that back body affects the rest of the body, right? The spine is kind of this toolkit in our body for the general well-being of us, which is why our teachers and our moms told us to sit up straight and keep that pathway of oxygen, of blood flow, of aliveness, real free of expression. So when we have a healthy spine, we can start to have a healthy us. And again, as you stay still, it's really the shape and the time of being in this shape that is the bigger conversation in our body. So you might notice things changing without you needing to change them. Even half an inch, even an inch physically, and even half an inch or an inch emotionally. We're going to hang out here for still another minute of time. Keep your jaw soft, maybe your eyes closed, and just breathe. For the last 5 breaths, can you count your inhale in for at least 5? And maybe move through your exhale out the nose for at least 6. And as you slow your breath down, just showing up to this general opening. Hi, sweetheart. This general opening through the heart center. This general opening also through our thyroid. It's a really great posture for stimulating the thyroid glands. And then that opening into our spine, right? The health and well-being of our spine. Because as much as we were meant to sit up straight when we sit up, the spine is also meant to be in flexion and flexibility, in mobility. One more breath in here. Slow out the mouth, perhaps. Exhale. You're going to bring one of your hands behind your head. You're going to help your head up. Head a little higher than the chest. That should turn on the charge of your belly. You can keep your head up without your hand because of the charge of your belly. And then you put your forearms and hands down on the mat and you sit back up. And then you release the prop from where it was so that you can take your spot right back down on the mat for that bit of feedback. Neutral spine on the mat. It should feel pretty sweet, guys, to get back down here. And so if you can challenge yourself to be still, really meet the integrity of corpse pose, Shavasana. Do nothing, get everything. Right here. And you might, I certainly feel a little leftover here of this. There may be just this kind of tenderness in the center of the chest from opening up there. There may be tenderness in the middle of the back from opening up. And just feeling for that aliveness in our body from having been impacted. Make none of it necessarily wrong. Just feeling for it. Being aware to it. And almost cuddling it with breath in and out. And bring the soles of the feet to the mat while still on that back body. And then you're going to bring the knees up without involving the hands again. A light tuck of the chin for a long neck. And whether you go forward and back through the knees or whether you make those circles or number 8s, just feeling the movement. Now, you may notice, having done a little bit of work on our spine, that this movement feels a little more available to you. You might notice that. In fact, I'd be curious to know if you do. You can send me a little note if you feel like corresponding about that detail. But for me, I really feel a difference in the way of how my body is open now versus when we first started. And that's really just this magic of the practice at work. And then you can put your hands on your knees, right? You take a deep breath in and hug in, pull in, breath out. Now, as you hug, there may be this natural lift of your lower spine off the mat. No problem, you can stay with that. We're in YIN, we're not in a yang practice, so you can allow for what happens to happen here. And then you can go wider through the knees almost like they're kind of going in towards the armpits. And you can just let them hang wide here, right? With your hands on the knees like a template. Or you might reach for hands to feet, outsides of the feet, happy baby. You might have a deep bend in the legs for happy baby, or you might kick the feet up towards the sky and feel for that. Allow the spine to kind of have a really wide curve to it, especially as it relates to the lower spine, maybe picking up here. Hold on to the feet, but maybe don't pull. So whatever shape you're finding in your happy baby is largely having to do with what you're doing with the legs, not what you're charging in the arms. And then it also has to do with how you relax into that. So maybe over one breath at a time, there's a real wider expression here. So for sure, we're into the expression of opening up our hips, but we're also just into what's happening in our spine. You might teeter a bit to one way because it gets a little imperfect, which is kind of nice to me. Stay with it, travel through your breaths. Big whole inhales here, big exhales. Remember, we're holding the pose, not the breath. We're holding on to the feet. We don't need to pull or charge the arms. And we're letting the expression of however our body meets this and falls into it, to fall into it, to let go into it. And travel through about 5 more breaths here. As you get to that 5th cycle of breath, try for a bigger inhale, maybe another sip or two at the top. Hold when you get to the top, perhaps. Hold. And then exhale out. Kind of audible exhale. Let it go, let it go. If you've kicked out the feet in happy baby, maybe bend the legs a little more so there's less of a kick out of the soles of the feet to the sky. And then take maybe your hands off your feet, one hand at a time, to the outer knees. And then bring the knees in to close like a book, knees over top of your chest in any which way. And then put the hands on the knees, thighs, so the fingertips are looking up towards the tops of the knees, and press the legs back so that the soles of the feet eventually come to touch down. And let that ground you, soles of the feet on the mat, deep breath in and out, spread the toes. Take the palms down, wide the feet a little wider. Bless you, Robin. And then knees are looking straight up, right? Breathe in here. And through a long exhale, knees go to the left. Both of them. Kind of like window shield wipers. At the bottom of the exhale, start to take another inhale and bring the knees back up to center. At the top of the inhale, exhale, the knees fall to the right. Let the exhale last with the whole movement. At the bottom of the inhale, or exhale, I should say, come back to inhale at the top. Knees to center. At the top of the inhale, knees to the left. Exhale down. At the bottom of the exhale, one more time. Knees to center. Breathe in. Get to the top, another sip. And then exhale, fall the knees to the right. Last the exhale for the full movement and gesture of going right. Bottom of exhale. Good. Come back up to inhale, center. And on an exhale, you're going to roll over to a side body. And you're going to take yourself to a tabletop. Whew. And in this tabletop, guys, you might just find a little bit of wag the tail. I like that gesture. 1, 2, 1, 2, right to left. You might start to find how the torso, how the back body gets involved in that gesture. You might come to center here, stabilize your tabletop. Take an inhale to arch the spine. That's your cat pose. Take an exhale to round the spine. Take an inhale to cow your spine. Take an exhale to round the spine into cat. Come to a flat back. Breathe in. Bring the knees closer together to kiss. Curl the toes under. And bring your bum towards your heels. Round your spine as you tuck your hairline in towards your knees a little more. And then frame your knees with your hands flat onto the mat. So the toes tucked under will be a little opening and offering through the feet. And the closer you bring your forehead to your knees, you'll feel rounding in your back body. That should feel kind of deliciousness in the way of opening your lower back. And then you can ground whatever part of the head is touching down onto your mat. And allow that to be the case here as you kind of shell up here. You're almost like a little snail rolled in, opening up that way. And then what really feels nice is to gesture your breath into the lower back, the sacrum area. Almost imagining that that is functioning like lungs. And when you decide to function it like lungs, you'll start to feel a stretch in the sacrum as you breathe in and out. You're going to stretch your hands out. Come into a tabletop. Short hold on that. And as we exhale, I just want you to right away thread the right hand underneath the left and a little twist here. Land to the outside of the right shoulder. You might put your shoelaces down on the mat to come out of curling the toes under. Big breath in and out through the nose. As you hold this shape, not the breath, just being really aware of how much more weight you can give into the outer shoulder and into the side of your cheek, your head. It may be the case that angling the right hand in a different way informs that a little more. It may also be the case that if you turn your left hip in and down a bit more, you bake onto the outer right shoulder a bit. A little heavier. And as we get into the twist and the whole twist of the spine and the lengthening there, just really treating your rib cage as though they are the lungs. And if you could treat it like that, how it would impact your breath a little differently. And as you become more receptive to the shape, maybe almost allowing for this idea of falling asleep in it, your body just gets a little heavier into it. A little less fight, a little less resistance. More to receive. Take 3 more breaths. Add on another sip to the inhale to add on a little deeper through the exhale. And you'll use your left palm to press down in front of your face when you're getting out. And you'll kick the right arm high in a little counter here. And a little counter twist. Breathe in. And put your right hand down. Breathe out. From your tabletop, you'll inhale. And thread the left arm through and underneath. And land on the other side. The sides don't need to feel the same. In fact, they often feel different depending on how we favor our weight and our body. It might be that to get deeper into this, you're angling the arm a certain way again. It might be that you're threading the arm more into it. It may also be that you're bringing your right hip in and down, which effectively brings your left hip a little more high. And as you try to level the hips a bit, there's a little more bang for the buck on that outer shoulder, and a little more receive into the grounding of this twist. softer jaws, part of the upper and lower jaws, closed eyes. A little more offering into this expression in your face, ease, and that helps to echo into the body. Treating again these ribs like they're the place of which brings breath in and out. For 3 more breaths. And then using your right palm, you might kick up that left arm. Feel the reach. Breathe in. Feel the counter there, and then left hand down. We'll offer one more little gesture here. I want you to arch the spine. Breathe in. Round the spine once. Breathe out. Arch the spine again. Curl the toes under. Breathe in. Keep the toes curled under and the arched spine, and go to down dog. Breathe out. Pedal out the legs. So one heel up, one heel down, and exchange that. Feel the space in the spine and treat it like there's all the space in the world to breathe in and out through your back body, through the whole expression from one shoulder blade to the next, from lower spine to the neck body. Just using the breath as a kind of broad brush across, up and down, into your back body, through and into your spine. And then come back down on your knees and take yourself to lie down on your back body for a final Shavasana. And as you get into Shavasana, here's the invitation, guys. Let yourself go really wide, breathing space at the armpits, palms facing up. And a light tuck of the chin. And that calm, calm jaw. And that calm, calm forehead. That part of the forehead that sometimes goes a little crinkly when we're a little bit occupied. Feeling for how we can flatten that out. And allowing your Shavasana to be the ultimate expression of Yin. So in Yin, we quiet the body. We resist the urge to move, to gesture. And in effect, that quiet body, that still body, and the fluidity of our breath are really this larger conversation taking place that we get aware of, get to understand and see all of how we think, how we respond, how we trigger. Those kind of habitual things about being us. And in those insights, in that space of quiet and reflection, we also get to manage what works for us. It's only by choosing to go inward and kind of be with that insight that we get to manufacture what works for us. Take a deep breath in and out. As usual, you're free to be here as long as you can. But I would echo as long as you need. And sometimes those two things don't match up. So if you've had a long week, if you've been absorbing a lot, then treat yourself to this space and time. I'll be returning live to my 8 a.m. posts, 8 a.m. PST, 11 a.m. EST, over the next week. And you can always get updates on my website and on Instagram to what time is the best time to meet me live. And other than that, you can check in with any of these classes anytime. Lots of love. Take care of yourself. Namaste.